so we are now recording. Excellent. I think that's probably all I want to say. So I'll hand straight over now to Carole, and I will share the screen in order for you to see her presentation. So if I do that, hopefully you can now see that. Does that look okay?
Thanks, Phil. That's really good. I'm so glad to have you there as my technical person. This would have been a nightmare otherwise. A lot of years ago, I was conscious of how much this village throws out and thought we could do things that would combine some charities we were already supporting with just a general encouragement to people not to chuck out so much stuff. At the time, we were collecting, for instance, a lot of foil for guide dogs for the blind, and we were already collecting stamps for leprosy mission. So that was the starting point, and it struck me that Christmas is when everyone throws out such a lot of things that if we held an event after Christmas, we could gather up all their things and ask them to recycle their Christmas and not have so much waste after it. So we started with that, and we started fairly small in 2010. We said we'd like to take the foil off them, washed, of course, the stamps off them, hopefully trimmed. All their Christmas cards would go to, that time, the Woodland Trust. They don't now. And we offered a table for exchange of gifts and said, you know, unwanted gifts that can be swapped for someone else's unwanted, and all these things will go around and it'll do a lot better. And we also made a big thing about batteries, and we asked them to bring their used batteries because Christmas toys and things generate a lot of batteries. And we had a draw, and the prize was a battery charger. And in addition, after that, I approached our local pharmacy and asked if they would be willing to host the container. I'd got in touch with a company that would take away the dead batteries and recycle them, but I needed somewhere for the container to be that wasn't still my home, because at that time everything was coming into the big trunk outside our front door, and I was trying to get these things spread out a bit more. So we persuaded the pharmacy to keep it, and that's kept going. For the next few years, people brought batteries along to the village hall, and we told them that there was a place for them to go all year, and persuaded them to not bring them to us. And each year we added different things, and particularly this example here, somebody working at Brunswick was making regular visits to an orphanage in Rwanda and was asking for towels. Not all the little boys, because it was a young boys orphanage, had towels. And it was very interesting that I was asking for them at a women's group I belonged to in Castamolves, and said we'd like to take towels for the orphanage in Rwanda. And someone said in shocked tones, "Used towels?" And I had to explain that if you don't have a towel at all, somebody's used towel that's been washed is perfectly fine and still rather more than you already have. And there is that disconnect between what is useful to someone in a far different situation than to us. And sometimes some of the things we ask for, people can't kind of understand why we would want that or what the value could be of it. We've had to do quite a bit of explaining over the years. But quite early on, we formed a connect. I was already a governor at the junior school, but and I was on the eco committee. We decided that it would be very good for this event to enable the junior school eco committee to show what they were doing. And over the years, they've done a lot of very good presentations, and they've managed to educate the community, really, because people come along to point out their child or grandchild or whatever, and then they often learn something new, the older folks, because the children are really up to the mark with what's important and what shouldn't be used in which way. And they were one of the first to tell all the adults that they shouldn't leave the tap running when they brush their teeth and things like that. And it was brilliant. And we felt that educating in that direction, the 8 and 9 year olds to the adults, was a far, far better way than anything we could say. That the adults took more notice and felt that was a really good partnership. And we gave them more or less free rein to do what they wanted to do, and it was great. And then I realised that I needed to keep it as the second Saturday of January, and then I'm always past 12th night. There was just the way the numbers work. If you hit the first Saturday, sometimes if you haven't passed 12th night, people won't have taken their cards down. They won't have cleared up after Christmas. You won't get half as much stuff off them as you will if you get your dates right. And also, I felt it would be a memorable thing that people could put in their diary forevermore, if you like. The second Saturday of the year, that's when it happened. And that's worked. And we made no charge. We've always had some refreshments for people upstairs. So in bad weather, it's turned out to be a great community event. People have been glad to come out, bring a few things, and meet up with people they wouldn't otherwise see. What we have always done on entry is take people's name and just their postcode. And the reason for that was I was trying to apply for a grant one year from York City Council, and I wanted to prove how beneficial it was locally, and I was able to quote the number of local postcodes of the people who were coming in, and that worked quite well in terms of me being able to prove that any money I got from them was really to the benefit of very locally the village. And of course, I've persuaded the parish council to let me have the village hall. So I needed to prove that it was mainly Bishop Thorpe people who were using this and benefiting from this. And we started to talk about exchanges, and we talked about exchanging handbags and jewellery, as well as just unwanted gifts. And we've tried a few things. The handbags and jewellery and scarves go very well, but I did try to do an exchange of craft kits. You know, people pick up different hobbies, not just knitting and crochet, but strange and interesting things like, macrame or making jewellery with beads or whatever. And then after a little while, often these things end up in the back of a cupboard. And so I thought it would be really helpful if people brought along those and took away something new to try. You could practically try a new hobby each year, thanks to this event, by just bringing something in and trading it for something different. But that has not really been picked up, and I'm not really sure why, but it hasn't. It's not been a great success. Having said that, there's a picture of Penny there, and one of our successful swaps has been the seed swap, hasn't it, Penny? To do reasonably with that, and people like to come along and see what seeds are available for something new and interesting that they can grow. And I don't know how many of them bring some seeds in to, I think more come to take than come to bring, but it seems to even out, that one. And in the early years, Sarah Goodhead from City of York Council was a big support. She would come along every year and run a little quiz and give away some recycled item as a prize. And she was promoting Love Food, Hate Waste, which was very good. And she would give me something like pens or mouse mats or something, all made from recycled items. And on them it said what they were made from, and sometimes it was quite a surprise. And these were great things to give to the children from junior school. And it just was a way of thanking them for coming in and doing this. this presentation and giving up a Saturday morning. So that worked really well. And early on, I got some funding from York and got a large banner made and put that outside the hall. Tend to put that up on Boxing Day, and then that gives us just over 2 weeks for everybody driving past to see when the event's on. And because we try and involve Acaster Malbis, I have another smaller banner which I put out there on the same day, and that goes outside their hall and just reminds people there of when it's happening. I see I've got an honourable mention here for Penny. Edible York and St Nick's are always invited, and St Nick's still hosts the stuff about composting and brings, Ivana usually brings with her the the famous compost bin that's been cut and has inside it all the items that can be composted, even though York Rotters is no longer funded by City Council as it used to be. Yeah, I've put there that we collect 14 items and exchange 4 more. What's good is this varies from year to year. You know, someone may approach me and say, we're collecting this for this particular charity, and we can put that in that year. They may not want to come back subsequent years. Thinking of refugees, somebody acting on behalf of refugees came collecting bedding 2 Januaries ago, but didn't return, but they got quite a bit. We were able to put it into Link, because that's the Village magazine and I happen to be the editor, so we can get any amount of space in Link to tell people the things we need. And they did quite well. And one of the things we have teamed up with has been the food bank, because after Christmas, a lot of people have food that's still in date that they bought just in case they were overwhelmed by visitors, and then they found they weren't, and they really don't want to eat any more of mince pies or whatever, and they're happy to hand those in, and they can go to the food bank if they've got a good forward date on them, and that works really well. Yeah, the leprosy mission, we had always collected stamps in the village. We added the postcards and some other collectibles like coins. And we've really collected big amounts of stuff for them. And it's been very good. And also picked up a couple of volunteers who are happy to trim stamps year round and pick up from other people and keep that thing going. So that's been a very good connection. We then were in touch with Ruth Perrott, who's the optometrist at Acomb, and she goes out every year with Vision Aid overseas. I think it's East Africa, but I may be wrong. And the last few years, we've had 90 odd pairs of spectacles brought in, which is brilliant. You know, it's really a good lot. She categorizes them and then she goes out, tests the eyes of these people who have no spectacles whatsoever, and find something that will help them. And it's a brilliant thing, because we all know that as your eyes are changing all the time, if you wear spectacles, only the last pair is any use to you, and anything earlier than that is of no use whatsoever. So you might as well let someone else have the use of it. I think people feel good about that's a really helpful one. And I was saying that, you know, if people were able to do this in their own parish, and if we could get these set up across York, it's often then the parish or the village may already be supporting some particular charity and already collecting something. So it's good to add that into your day, because that's almost your unique point. And it makes people feel more connected if they're already doing something about this one, and then you're just asking for them to bring along some other things that may be going spare, maybe not needed. They feel happy about that, and I think that is sort of the way in to say, in addition to this that we've all been doing for ages, we're adding these few things. And I do think, from a point of view of running it, you're better to start with a few things. We now do quite a lot, but only 10 years on are we doing quite a lot. We've added a few at a time and been able to cope with it. But I think I wouldn't want to start running as many different things as we do from the first time. It would be too difficult. It's tricky enough. You need a lot of helpers, and you need helpers to man each of the stalls to pick up the things that people bring you. We have one or two stalls unmanned because it doesn't matter almost what they drop off there. One is the tools for self-reliance. We get quite a lot of gardening tools and do-it-yourself tools, and we just leave a big table near the door because people don't want to carry them very far. One of the reasons you need a lot of helpers is you actually have to watch that people aren't unloading everything after they're clear out on you. You know, it's very difficult to persuade people who've brought things from home that that they can't leave them, that what they're trying to give you isn't useful, that charity can't use for whatever reason, and they really should take it back with them. And we've found that even when people have said very firmly, we cannot use this, they might just drop it off as they go out the main door, and you find bags of stuff all over the place, really, at the end of the function. So the more helpers you've got, the more of that you can avoid. We do say the day's entirely free, but we found that putting a donations pot near the refreshment helps. A lot of people want to just drop something in, and there are a few costs, really just about bringing people to show workshops and show people how to make something, from, especially if you can do it from something they're bringing in. We had a very successful workshop one year where someone we knew came along and showed people how to make a box from Christmas cards, from a square Christmas card. You cut and you folded and what have you, and you ended up with a really nice box with the front of the Christmas card forming the top of the box and the back of the Christmas card forming the base. They were quite small, they just fit in the palm of your hand, but they were nice and people were thrilled to take those away in order to use them for some friend, and they felt very good about that. It was a really nice one. And if we get a few new things, then we have a raffle, and that's another way to just make a few pounds to offset, really, so that we can pay people who come from a long way to run workshops, because we have had friends come over from Driffield and we feel that they should get something towards their petrol money, so that's what we take the money for. But otherwise, I think they can be run locally, and if you can get hold of the hall and you've got volunteers giving you time, then there are very few costs involved, really. It's just time and effort that you have to give to it to make it run. And we try and give out good info. We're trying to keep things out of landfill. We're trying to benefit charities, and we're trying to change people's habits of deciding that things are useless and should be thrown out, or that they should always go and buy something new to replace or in order to do something. So there's a lot of educating goes on, I think, and people come in with perhaps just some foil and their Christmas cards and something else, and then talk to the people running the different stalls who they didn't realise were going to be there, hadn't really taken notice of the list, and they might talk to Penny about edible York and what it does, and so they find out a bit more about what's happening generally and how things are being reused or being swapped around. And I think that's really one of the major benefits. And the other thing is we run from 10 till 2, and really between 1 and 2, there's very few people come in until you get to about 1:45, and then there's those people who always come at the last minute, or even 2:05. There's always one. But apart from that, we keep going till 2 o'clock because we find the hour between 1 and 2 is when all the stall holders get a chance to go round and see what one another are doing, and there's lots of good networking takes place then. And that's another, if you like, another benefit of running a biggish day like this, with a lot of different groups coming in, a lot of different interests, and taking a lot of different things away from the whole. Everyone finds out something new each time they come, really, and that's another benefit of it, I think. And bit by bit, people are getting the idea that they should hold on to things and bring them to the recycling day. And we try and say they can always ring up and ask if we can take it. And sometimes someone will suggest something they have that we hadn't thought of, and we'll find out who can take it from them, and that can be useful too. And like you can see, can I compost weeds? We have a lot of good leaflets like that, and we leave them on the table by the door and hope that people will help themselves on the way out, and again that they'll take away new knowledge with them. That's the hope anyway. Don't know. You can never tell.
Thanks, Carole. That's the last slide. So what I'll do, I will stop screen sharing, and if you want to pop your camera back on top of your computer, then we'll get the all of the screens back up. So
your video because the host is started.
There you go. I've just asked you to start it. So yep.
That's back on top. Is that okay if I sort of lean forward? Can you hear me? Or
yep.
That's all right.
Yep, that sounds great. So, any questions, folks?
Questions? Claire, anything to ask?
I was wondering how many volunteers you always need more, I know. But how many volunteers?
We probably have about 20 people, don't we, Penny?
About 20. Right.
About 20. We have our local village hall, and the downstairs room is just the size of a badminton court. There's a stage, and we put workshops on the stage, and then we have another room upstairs where we sort all the Christmas cards out, and where we have the refreshments. We have 3 or 4 small tables, so we have a couple of people in sort of shifts doing the refreshments for people. And we try and man as many tables as we can. We don't man them all, we don't need to, but it's good to have a lot of people in the room answering questions, pointing people in the right direction for where they need to put things. And as I say, you know, just people need often want to talk, and the more people you have, just the better, really.
Yes.
Even if they're just talking about something that's not necessarily even there, talking about their favourite charity that does something different. People exchange a lot of info on these days.
That's great. There's a hand up from Foon. Need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so that was a very good presentation, Carole. I've never, obviously, unfortunately, heard of this recycling project that you do, and I really applaud you for your efforts. But I want to know, obviously, what is happening, obviously, in this current pandemic. Are you planning to run it?
We can't do it. We couldn't keep people correctly distanced. It couldn't work. So sadly, we've had to already announce that what would have been the 12th, I think, or 13th recycling day won't happen in January, and we just have to wait and see when we can do it. So it won't be a post-Christmas one, but we may still try to get it in during 2021 because there will still be a lot of stuff around that we could take off people, like spectacles, like their ink cartridges,
Yeah.
you know, like the food for the food bank, and those things will still be around, even if we don't take as much of the post-Christmas things. I don't think that'll be an issue at all. We just want to stop those things being thrown out, and you know people will. If they can't pass them to you, they'll probably dump them in the black bin, you know. So you kind of have to take them off them to keep them out of the landfill, I think.
Cool. A question. Go.
Could I have a look at your list of contacts before Christmas next year, Carole, for Stillington Village Hall?
Yeah, of course, with pleasure. Yeah.
I can obviously find things locally, but some of them are more specific that would be useful to know.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'll send you my list, Yvonne, and tell you who I get in touch with, because I think if we could get these going in lots of different areas of York, people, they would all do well, because people won't hang on to things for very long. I know that if somebody replaces something in February, they're not going to say, oh, take that to recycling day next January. They're going to say, not keeping it that long, and it will get thrown. Might go to a charity shop, but it might just end up in the black bin. So I would be really happy if we had them all over this area, and you could direct people. This month's recycling day is there, and the next month is there, you know, and that would be great.
We're actually in Hambleton, but on the edge of Rydale. Sheriff Hutton's in Rydale, so you could find it spreading even further if you do it in a village, or the villages pick it up.
If you're having it at a different time of year, I'll come and give you a hand, Yvonne.
Thank you.
You know, and that's the way to do it, isn't it?
This is all being recorded, so that's committed to film now. So there's no way out on that one. I've got a question for you, which is about a kind of generational question, really, which is, I mean, I'm in my 60s now. My experience kind of just from my family is that my parents' generation were real hoarders. You know, they just wouldn't throw stuff away. So consequently, when my mum died, you know, I ended up kind of spending weeks taking away stuff that she had just piled up in the quiet corners of her flat. And at the other end of it, my daughter, who's in her 20s, is part of a generation where, you know, she loves the idea of cheap stuff. So, you know, she was a regular Primark shopper when she was younger, and so she'd buy clothes on a kind of almost continuous churn of buying stuff in. Do you find that you get engagement with all of those different age groups with what you do, or do you find that it's mainly older people who are kind of more engaged with the kind of village networks? And do you find that you do get kind of the teenagers and the 20-somethings bringing stuff in?
To be honest, that's really what the exchange of handbags, jewellery and scarves is about the trendy young mums, trying to bring them in and have something for them. If we were only about collecting people's spectacles and printer cartridges and foil, we wouldn't get those young mums. And also, of course, using the school helps to bring people in who otherwise would have probably nothing to do with it, if I'm honest. But because they're related to, or whatever, all this group of children that are going to give a presentation, they come to support that. And even if they don't bring anything with them, they take away some little bit of knowledge that they didn't have before. So it's all about trying to get as many people through the door as possible, right across all the age groups. And there's no doubt that the free refreshments, the older folks are very happy to come in and sit down and know that they'll get a drink and a biscuit and what have you, and chance to chat. And that the young mums will come in to support their own kids or their neighbours or their children's best friend, whatever. And yeah, we don't see teenagers unless they're brought in as part of the family, to be fair. But that's what you would expect, isn't it? But we try and get that bigger range of people through putting the school in and through putting things to exchange that we hope will interest people who probably could afford to buy new, but can see the benefit of something that they may not use for long being just done on an exchange. Just, you know, I could do with a new scarf to go with this, and there may be one there. Why don't we pop along and see? You know, kind of thing. So that's what that section really is for. Go on, Penny.
I was just going to say that at the seed swap, we get families with children who are interested.
Yeah.
Either the children are interested in growing or the parents want to get the children interested. Once or twice I've taken along, well, I like to think of an activity, and once or twice I've taken some felt tips and put some paper out and said, if children come, ask them if they want to draw a vegetable or if they think they'll draw a flower, as a way of, because they don't want to really talk about seeds, but if, you know, they do what they can do, and if they can, most children like drawing, so it's a way of getting people engaged. And then I think the other thing is that occasionally when we've posted on the Facebook page of Edible York, then students have turned up, but purely have come because they know about our stall, and then they want to find out what we're doing, and obviously then they see what else is happening too. So maybe it's about trying to think about how to reach the student age group.
I would like to, if we could think of some sort of thing that would be good for them, either as a swap or bringing your old or whatever. Or I've always thought it would be absolutely great if we could run some sort of an IT workshop. This is how you fix your whatever. You know, something like that. If we could get a few IT experts to come and say, if you've got a problem with your tablet, your mobile phone, we can help you to sort the way around. That might bring in.
That's a good idea.
I think that would be a way to go, because we should always be developing it and thinking of new things to do. And I thought of a couple of new things we can collect recently that I'm going to add to the next list. I keep, you know, I try and make it keep progressing and keep and I'm also trying to drop off some things, you know, like the batteries. We've done that. You now need to take them to the pharmacy. That's dealt with. And if I can get some other things where there's a better place they can be taken to and all year round, then we should drop those off. And in order to have space and in order to be constantly changing, so that we're interesting to come to every year. It isn't going to be exactly the same as it was last year. I think is quite important too.
One of the things that strikes me, and you talked about that, the difficulty of getting the kind of teenagers and students in. I guess one of the things that, you know, if you are distracted by all sorts of stuff going on around, then you kind of need a good reason to kind of get interested in something, don't you? And so one of the things that kids of that age do, or students often do, is thinking about, you know, how can you do fashion from kind of vintage clothes is seen as deeply funky, as far as I understand it, and all you're doing is effectively kind of bringing clothes in kind of, you know, it under a slightly different name. You know, you're not calling it vintage clothes, it's secondhand stuff. I wonder if there's an opportunity to kind of link up with the.
To do that one year for Brunswick,
right?
We tried to do bring up to 3 items to exchange, but you need vast numbers of people because all these things are different sizes. It's not just that. If you're into, other than sort of, I don't know, outside jackets and waistcoats, they need to specifically fit. And so you need really big numbers of people participating in this to make it work. And that's what we found. It didn't go too well. We felt that it was a bit of a mistake for us, but we did try it one year.
Just wondering.
I agree, vintage clothes would be a great thing, but you'd need to maybe make that something that went round half a dozen recycling days, if you see what I mean, so that they got put in front of a larger range of people. and then there'd be more chance of them finding the right home.
I was just wondering whether, I mean, York College is literally about half a mile away from you. I'm guessing there must be students there doing fashion design and stuff like that. Yeah, I just wonder whether there are connections that could be made there. It's clearly more work and all that kind of stuff, but it just might kind of give you something where, you know, if the college could do it as a, chuck it up as a project, something to
even
do.
Maybe I could, because I go to the hair and beauty section, maybe persuade some of them to come down and do some makeup tips or something. That might be a way to get younger people in. That might be
just picking up on your connection with the local junior school. I'm kind of, you mentioned that you did stuff there. I mean, I'm guessing that recycling and that kind of agenda is a drum that you bang fairly regularly down there. Is that something where you make connections?
Well, they're very good. Their eco agenda is very, very widespread indeed. I mean, I used to run the gardening club for years, and the kids are really, really knowledgeable about environmental issues, and they're very good, and they're quite knowledgeable about what they should eat and not eat, which is brilliant. So they were able to do their eco committee presentation on a completely different subject every year. They weren't repeating same old. I mean, Penny's seen a few of them, and they are great. The kids really know their stuff, and they write their own stuff. They don't just read out words written by an adult somewhere. They actually write their own stuff, and it is very encouraging. And
cool.
It's good to use them, and it's good to let people who don't have any children in school see how well they're doing on that. It acts as a good forum for that more people are aware of what's being taught in school and so on.
It's often interesting though, isn't it? I mean, I certainly know from my own experience when I was a kid, and certainly with Hannah as well, my daughter, that stuff you learn in school almost seems separate from the outside world, and it's not until people start making connections. I mean, Hannah did, cooking at school and stuff like that. And as soon as she got home and I stuck her in the kitchen and said, well, why don't you try making something? She'd go, well, no. We only did it at school because it's like a lesson at school and therefore you do it as a school subject. The idea that you might find it useful outside was almost alien to her. So something like the stuff that you're doing there really gives an opportunity to say, you're learning about this not because you're going to do a GCSE in it or whatever, because you'll then not starve when you're a student or whatever, it's kind of making those connections, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
Any more questions?
Another idea, we had an under fives toy exchange one year, and that brought quite a lot in. You have to limit the number of, so you're not getting cartloads, but bring us the little ones in, and usually they're not things you can lose pieces of, the whole items. It's not like bringing puzzles and jigsaws and things in. Lots of it gets exchanged on Freecycle and Facebook nowadays. They pay stuff, £5 and pick some up. But there's still people that would like to come and see, and the kids can come and see then.
You kind of hope that after nearly a year of being locked up, that everyone's going to be fairly keen to get out and actually kind of encounter real human beings when we're finally allowed.
I'm going to the Joseph Rowntree Theatre on Saturday.
2 meters away, 2 meters. Yeah. Good
They're all
stuff.
taped off.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, any other stuff we want to talk about now, or shall I stop the recording and bring things to a close?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, that's been great. Many thanks indeed, Carole. That was really interesting. What I will do, Carole, if there's any information you want to send out in terms of information about the recycling day or contact details for you, if people want to make contact, and I noticed there's a comment in the chat from Woong when she went saying she'd like to get in touch. So if you're happy for me to circulate that, then just send information to me that you want to go out, and I'll make sure an email goes out to all the attendees and indeed the people who didn't attend. So many thanks, folks. I shall stop the recording while